And welcome everyone to another edition of the BIS podcast, broadcasting live on the Marvin Network. Now we have a special treat for you on the podcast today, as we are joined by the Chief Appraiser of Hunt County, Brent South. Mr. South, we appreciate you being on the podcast with us. And hey, I've heard, like I said before when we started talking, I've had a lot of good things and also a lot of good stories.
Well, yeah, when you first introduced yourself, I think it was I've heard a lot of good stories about you, and that kind of concerned me. So wait a minute, let's not believe all the things that you hear. So, but I'm glad to be here, Josh. I appreciate the invite, and I'm looking forward to chatting a little bit about legislation and kind of what's going on in the property tax world.
Yes, sir. And again, Hunt Cad's one of our, again, all our clients are amazing, but Hunt Cad's right up there with them. And, Brett, being the chief appraiser, I know y'all been really focused lately on the Texas Legislative and all the bills that are getting passed. Now, some of those bills we're going to cover today: House Bill 796, House Bill 1228, House Bill 3273, and Senate Bill 348. But before we kind of get to that, Brett, one of the things we kind of talked about before we started and really wanted to talk about today is kind of where the legislative is right now on property tax relief.
Yeah, absolutely. We've gone through the regular session, and one of the big things that the governor and the lieutenant governor all promised the constituents was that they're going to take all this surplus money they have and give it back to the taxpayers through some form or fashion of property tax relief. And it's amazing to me that we've got a Republican governor, a Republican lieutenant governor, and a Republican Speaker of the House, and the Republicans are in the majority of both the House and the Senate, and they couldn't get anything done. They couldn't agree on what the best plan was. The House wanted a combination of tax rate compression and caps. They wanted a 5% cap on all real property. And then the Senate wanted tax rate compression and exemptions. And so they just couldn't get it done. They started kind of bad mouthing each other and calling each other names. And the end of the session rolled around and there was no property tax relief. So the governor, actually the afternoon that they adjourned sine die from the regular session, the governor brought them right back into the first called special session to fix property tax relief. And both chambers passed the bill and sent it over to the other chamber, but the House immediately adjourned and went home. So we've got a Senate bill out there that has a $100,000 homestead exemption and rate compression, and then we got a House bill that just has strictly rate compression. But the House is nowhere to be found, so we don't know what's going to happen at this point. My guess is they're going to have to shut down this special session, and the governor's going to call another one, and they're going to have to start the process all over. So it's just been a mess. It's unfortunate because the Texas taxpayers are the ones who are the biggest losers in this, because they have $17.6 billion set aside in the budget for property tax relief. And our leaders can't figure out how to get it back to the taxpayers. And it's just kind of a sad situation. But hopefully they'll get it figured out. There'll be some type of form of property tax relief coming. And of course, that makes all of our jobs a little bit easier because, as we know, in the appraisal district world, our job is to appraise property, but people still think that we're the ones taxing their property. So any relief is beneficial to us as chief appraisers.
Yes, sir, indeed. And again, we know, both of you know as well, the wild whirlwind of politics and how everything can go around and round until a final decision can be made. But, Brent, when can people expect, if you, kind of are looking at it, when we can maybe see that relief, or what people can be doing as taxpayers right now, especially if they own property?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that they've made very clear is that whatever plan they come up with, they want it to be effective this year. They want people's 2023 tax bills to be reduced right now. The problem you run into is a lot of the proposals that they have out there are going to take a constitutional amendment, which means it has to go before the voters in November. Of course, tax bills get set in September or October and get mailed in October. So we're kind of concerned now if they do some type of increase of the homestead exemption, what number do we need to be certifying to our taxing units? Is it the higher number, the lower number, a combination of both? So there's just a lot of unknowns right now. But property owners, I think that you can expect some type of property tax relief. It's just a matter of, as a homeowner, are you going to get something on your home through an exemption, or are all property owners going to get something through rate compression? And that's the big debate.
Yes, sir, indeed. Well, Brett, when do you think, again, you talk about there maybe have to be another special session called by the governor to really get anything kind of moving on this? You talk about, what people kind of may be expecting. And again, with the bills going out, even before the voters really go back in November to really kind of vote on this, it may seem to take a little bit before people start seeing some type of relief, if what I'm understanding is correct.
Yeah, it may be that they get a bill in October that shows no relief, and then legislature finally gets something done, and then they get a supplemental bill later on in the year for a lower amount, and that's going to create a lot of confusion, and it's going to create havoc for tax assessor collectors if they already started collecting the taxes based off of those original bills, and then if they get lowered, what are they going to do? I guess they're going to have to start sending out a lot of refunds. So the timing on this, the longer that the legislature takes to decide what this property tax relief package is going to look like, the more complicated and confusing it gets to property owners, and more challenging it gets for tax assessor collectors to know which bill or refunds they're going to have to send out.
And as appraisers, Brent, how are y'all kind of preparing? Again, everything's kind of up in the wind from what you're talking about. How are y'all kind of preparing, if y'all are preparing at all, for some type of decision that might come later this year?
Yeah, the good thing for the chief appraiser side of it, if they do an exemption, if they increase the homestead exemption, that's really a pretty easy fix for us. We just go into our software programs and we change the amount from 40,000 to whatever they decide on, and recalculate our system. So it's really not a big issue for us. The only concern we have as chief appraisers is if they do it now, but it's going to be retroactive based on and contingent on voter approval in November, which number are we supposed to certify and send over to our taxing units? That's really the biggest question that we have. But as far as the mechanics of it, there's really not a whole lot of concern, because it's a simple fix through our software providers.
Yes, sir, indeed. Well, before we talk about some of these bills that we'll discuss here in just a second, anything for, again, for your people, for any of the taxpayers around here in Texas, on this, what you may think they should do, or maybe should plan for coming up here in the next few months or even a year or so.
Well, I would just say that whatever the plan becomes, if it is something that has to go to the voters, get out and vote. If they want to increase the homestead exemption and you want to pay less property taxes, make sure you get out and vote in favor of that increased exemption. And then make sure that you've applied for your exemption. If you don't know what exemptions you may qualify for, contact the appraisal district and ask them, hey, here's my property, what exemptions can I qualify? And they'll be happy to help you, walk you through that process, make sure you have all the appropriate application forms and get them filled out and turned in and submitted timely. And you don't want to leave anything off the table that you may actually qualify for.
Yes, sir, indeed. Well, again, we're talking with Brent South here on the BIS podcast. The first bill we're going to talk about, Brent, is the Public ARB Database, House Bill 796, provided by Appraisal District. So kind of talk to us about this first bill and what, again, for a Public ARB database, I know that's something trying to be a little bit easier for the public to get access to. So kind of tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, so this is a bill that was filed by Representative Angie Button, and it's going to require that the appraisal district establish and maintain a protest hearing database. And this amends section 4113 of the property tax code. And so for each protest hearing that's conducted by the appraisal review board, this database must list the name of each board member that was present at the hearing, the date, time, and location of the hearing, the account number and the category of the property being heard, the appraisal district's appraised value and the property owner's opinion of value, and then what the board's ultimate determination was. Now, we've already heard there's a lot of concern from ARB members with that first item, where it has to have the name of each board member that was present at the hearings. Matter of fact, we've had some ARB members have reached out to their judges or even their chief appraisers and said, hey, if this bill becomes law, I'm probably going to resign off of the ARB because I don't want my name out there attached to these. And I get it. That is concerning. The bill as it was originally filed would have required that this database be updated at the conclusion of every hearing. So each time a hearing was conducted and a determination was made, we were going to have to update that database right then and there. We explained to them that that's going to be very time consuming and difficult and challenging for appraisal districts, especially right in the midst of the ARB season when we're already spread so thin. So they did amend the bill to say that the database must be updated once a year by October 1st of each year. There is to be a link. The way that people will get to this database is that we'll have a link on our SB2 Truth and Taxation website to reach this database. So, and I think that it's this bill was actually brought to Representative Button by one of the tax consultant associations. And I think that to me, it's good. It's good information, good transparency. I just hope that the tax agents don't utilize this to start trying to pick and choose panels and ARB members that they want to go before and then rescheduling a bunch of hearings, because they'll be able to go out there and they can run their own statistics on which ARB panels and members gave more reductions than others. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, sir. And I know ARB season's already busy enough for y'all, so it's a good way y'all could compromise in that fact of not having to, again, as you said, update it weekly, but again by October 1st. So I mean, a little bit of compromise in there. Again, not everyone's going to get the way they want it, but it's good that y'all could compromise and come to a solution in that fact.
Yeah, absolutely. We were glad that they at least were willing to work with us on that aspect of it. But this will be the third database now, our third website that we're required to maintain. We've got our regular websites, our SB2 website, and now we have this third database that we're going to have to maintain and support and make sure that all the data gets updated. So it's every legislative session there's a little bit more technology that has to be implemented from appraisal districts. So that's where BIS comes in handy for us.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's what we like to provide. And that kind of goes into our next bill. We're going to talk about House Bill 1228, sending appraisal evidence electronically prior to protest. Now, again, technology has become a big facet here, especially since I think when COVID happened, again, we had a lot of people working from home. A lot more people were online. And a lot more people had to do it online during that time because we couldn't really do it in person. We've just kind of now come to the fact, we're 3 years past COVID, which seems only yesterday. But
Right.
again, technology is just grown and grown and grown. So how do you feel, Brett, being the chief appraiser and talking to your fellow colleagues about this bill coming up and how technology just seems to grow? And that's more what we're going to now in doing this.
Well, and this bill is really interesting to me. It started off as just a very simple 2-page bill. The filed version was going to amend Section 25195 of the Property Tax Code, which is the section that requires us to allow property owners to come in and inspect the evidence that we're going to use at a hearing and those types of things. This would have amended it to say that upon request, we would have to send that data out to a property owner or their agent electronically, which is great. I think the more electronic communication we can do, the better off it is for all of us. But this bill grew as it went through the process. When it got over to the Senate, Senator Springer, he actually filed an amendment to the bill, which amended all of Representative Shine's House Bill 1609 into this bill. And House Bill 1609 was the rather large electronic communications bill. And so what 1609 does, which I guess now is 1228, it defines communication as a notice, rendition, application form, completed application, report, filing, statement, ARB order, bill, or other items of information required to be delivered under this title. So basically anything and everything that we have to send out or the ARB has to send out is considered a communication for purposes of electronic communication. And then it goes on to define what a tax official is. A tax official is a chief appraiser, an appraisal district, an ARB, an assessor, a collector, or a taxing unit. So what this bill does, it says that that a tax official must allow for electronic communication of these items that we've just listed. The owner or the agent may elect for electronic communication, and we have to grant that election. We would be required to establish a procedure for how those property owners elect for electronic communication, and we have to specify the manner in which those communications would be exchanged and the method for confirming delivery. So there's going to be some challenges, I think, because the more people that sign up for this, and we send a lot of information out of our office, a lot of information, all the ARB orders, appraisal notices, homestead applications. You just think about the amount of paper that we send out that could now possibly be going through either some type of portal or email service. And we have to be able to confirm delivery and receipt whenever we send things out or receive things back from the property owners. It does state that the delivery is considered timely if it's addressed to the correct portal or email address, and if it's received on our servers on or before the due date. It specifies that electronic signatures are considered valid, and that we must acknowledge the receipt of a communication delivered to us electronically. So, and I think it's good. I think that, the more electronic communication we can do, the more cost savings we're looking at, because we spend a lot of money on postage. Postage is one of our biggest, not biggest, but one of our larger expenses that we have at the appraisal district. And so we're just going to have to be we're going to have to think it through very carefully on how we set these electronic communication programs up. And I'm very hopeful and very confident that BIS will be able to get us where we need to be in establishing these portals or whatever procedure and process that each individual chief appraiser and appraisal district comes up with to do this electronic communication. But it's going to be something new and challenging, that's for sure.
And that's what we like to do here at BIS. We like to take on that challenge, make sure our clients feel that they have the tools necessary to provide what they need out to their to the taxpayers. So,
so on one thing, Josh, I will mention on this bill, because we do recognize, and the legislature recognize that there is a significant difference between your larger metro CADs and your smaller rural CADs as far as being able to implement major changes like this. For the counties that are over 120,000 in population, they'll have to have this electronic communication up and running by 2024. For those counties that are less than 120,000 in population, we'll have until 2025 to implement this program. So we'll have a little bit more time. Yeah.
And that's one thing I did want to hit on, Brent, a little bit. Again, bigger counties, the city, cities and everything else have the capable tools necessary to provide electronic assignments out to everybody, where the rural counties don't as much. So that's good. Y'all got a little bit of leeway there. For some of the elderly members, especially kind of in your county, are there going to be ways still? Because some people just don't either understand technology or have trouble with it. Are there still going to be ways off that of not using technology that way to use for appraisals and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. We just have to have this available if a property owner chooses to sign up and register for it. So if you don't want to have your communications done electronically, don't sign up for it, and you can still get it through the old-fashioned U.S. Postal Service. Not a problem whatsoever.
Gotcha. Yes, sir. Well, let's move on now to our next bill we're going to talk about, and that kind of going with technology a little bit. This is House Bill 3273, emailing notifications on the TNT website, August and September updates, which I know is a very big season for y'all that's coming up here in the next couple of months or so. So kind of tell us a little bit about that, Brent, and what this bill means.
Yeah, so House Bill 3273, this was by Vice Chair Theory. She's the Vice Chair of the Ways and Means Committee. And so Senate Bill 2 of the 86th legislative session, which created the new SB2 websites, it required us to mail out these August 7th postcards to every property owner in the county, directing them to the website. And it's all about transparency. And I think it's great. Transparency is key. We want people to go to these websites because we as chief appraisers want people to understand who's actually levying a property tax on their property. Is it the appraisal district or is it the taxing units themselves? So these websites are excellent, and we want people to go to it. The problem that we've come up with is that when we send the postcards out on August 7th, that's way too early. People are going to these websites and the taxing units haven't calculated their rates yet, so there's nothing on the website. And then they're never going back. You know, they get a postcard. Well, number one, most people throw the postcard in the mail because they just assume it's some type of flyer or spam or junk mail, so they don't even pay attention to it. Those that do go to the website, when there's no information, they think, well, that was worthless, and they don't go back to the website. So we wanted to come up with a way to get people notified at the right time, and also to have some cost savings to appraisal districts, because sending a postcard out to every property owner in the county, again, going back to that postage that we talked about, that's a big expense. So what House Bill 3273 does is it would still require us to send the postcard for 2023, okay? But starting in 2024, we're no longer required to send that postcard, which is great. That was one of TAD's legislative priorities, was to do away with that postcard and the expense that comes along with it. It does state that we now have to post the required language from section 26.04E-2 on the 2519 appraisal notice. We'll have to put that on our CAD website. Each taxing unit within the district has to put that notice on their website. We have to put it on the ARB hearing notice, and then we have to publish it in a newspaper by August 7th of each year. And so, you know, there are some trade-offs, but still putting those things on websites and printing them on the appraisal notice, that's still going to be a lot cheaper than actually sending out those postcards. And I think it's going to be much more effective and actually get people to go to the websites. But to take it a step further, to get people to go back to the website and check for updates, it requires us to allow property owners to register an account to receive email notification anytime one of their taxing units actually updates the website. So for those people that go on August 7th and there's no information on there, they can now register and say, hey, whenever my taxing unit posts their no new revenue rate or their voter approval rate or their proposed rate, and it changes that website, send me an email telling me go back and check it now, because there is useful information on the website. And that's where BIS is going to come in, because that's going to be some technology that we have to implement to be able to set up that email notification system to those folks who do sign up and register for those emails.
Yes, sir, indeed. I think you really are, hitting the nail on where it's going to make it easier for people who get those postcards. And like you said, if you get something in the mail, heck, I do it too. You either throw it away, you don't pay attention to it enough, and getting that, right at kind of the right time and getting those email notifications, which is a heck of a lot easier on checking your phone nowadays more than getting something in the mail. You talk about, cost effective, but also I think it would really help people keeping up with the times and stuff like that, and also making sure that they're ready for when that time comes.
Exactly. That's right. Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we got one more bill to talk about here today, and that's going to be Senate Bill 348, residential sketches and font or aerial photo allowed on CAD websites. Now, I'm not too familiar with this kind of thing here, Brent. So kind of, inform me, and for the people who, are just kind of tuning in and learning about this as well. Was that something that wasn't allowed at first and now is being implemented, or how's that kind of work?
Well, so just kind of to give you a little bit of history on this, Josh. So back prior to 2005, appraisal districts were allowed to put sketches and street level photos of the exterior of buildings on our websites. And most of us had that on the website. And it's actually very useful, helpful information to property owners. But in 2005, Senate Bill 541 was passed, which required us to remove those sketches and those photos off of our websites, because people thought it was a security issue. People felt like, hey, having a sketch of somebody's house on the website is not a good idea, or having a picture of a house on a website is not a good idea, even though you can go to a multitude of other websites and see pictures and aerials and everything else of homes. So anyway, so they disallowed us to post those things on our website, so we all had to take them off until fast forward to 2023. Now under Senate Bill 348, we'll be allowed to implement some of those things back into our websites. 348 would allow us to have sketches as long as they depict only the building outline. And I totally agree, that makes sense. They don't want us to have sketches showing where bedrooms are located or offices or things like that, just strictly the outside dimensions of the buildings. And it also allows us to put back on the websites street level photos that only show the exterior of the building. And again, this bill is permissive. It doesn't say that we have to put those things on our websites. It just allows us to if we would like to. And I do think it's very useful information to property owners, especially a property owner who files a protest and is trying to present their case or prepare their case. They can go to our website and they can click on their neighbors and see their pictures and see what properties are comparable, which ones aren't, which ones have the similar square footage, those types of things. And they can go to our website and they can look at the sketch of their own property and make sure that the appraisal district has their house drawn correctly, that we have accurate information, accurate data, because if we have bad information, then we're going to have a bad appraised value. So I think it's going to be helpful and useful. There is going to be some technology requirements to get these things on the website, but the good thing is it's been done before. I mean, you know, we had these on the websites prior to 2005, so surely we can get them back on there easy enough.
Yes, sir. And in your experience, Brent, again, you're talking about a big gap right there from 2005 to 2023, where this is kind of being allowed again, almost kind of close to a 20-year kind of time span on that. You know, what do you kind of think changed in the Texas legislature for this to kind of get passed, and also maybe in people's minds to get those aerial photos back on the websites?
Yeah, I think that it just was a matter of time. There have been 3 or 4 bills filed over that 20-year time span to change this and reverse what was done in 05. But you always had 1 or 2 members that really just kind of voiced some concern about security risks. But I think enough people now recognize that you can go to all kinds of websites out there and see these images and see these photos and see aerial photos. And I think they finally starting to recognize that it's more of a benefit to the property owner to be able to ensure that the appraisal district has their individual property accurately measured and listed, and also a benefit to the property owners as they prepare their case for an ARB hearing to see information on surrounding similar like properties.
Yes, sir. And one of the things, again, we want our listeners to know is that this is going to be security. It'll be protected. And again, like you say, it's not going to be the full kind of picture of homes or offices or whatever. It's more of just the outline, as you said, to kind of protect from those type of things from happening.
Correct. That's right. That's right.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, we've covered, all the bills we wanted to cover today. We talked about property tax relief and what people can expect on that. Now, again, Brent, a lot of these bills here that are coming up, though, are going to take place a little bit kind of, being implemented in the later part of this year, but more coming in 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, the majority of these are going to have a 2024 effective date. So, we've got some time to get these things implemented. And as I mentioned on 1228, for those smaller counties, it has a 2025 effective date. So that'll be very helpful.
Awesome. Well, we've been talking with Brent South here today on the BIS podcast. Brent, we again appreciate you joining us here today. Again, I've told you, I heard a lot of good things and good stories, but hey, the more good things, the more the stories.
All right. Very good. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Well, hey, Brent, before I want to let you go, though, anything you'd like everyone out there to know, again, the people in your own county, for all your kind of your colleagues, what would you like people to know out there before we kind of sign off today?
No, I just want to encourage, everyone when we're talking about property taxes, just to keep everything in perspective and really try to educate yourself. If you're a property owner looking at property taxes from the owner side, try to get educated and understand how the system works and how the process works. And if you're in the property tax industry, try your best to help educate property owners of how the system works. I think that it's important for people to understand it, and that's why I'm glad to see that a lot of these things that are being passed by the legislature over the last several sessions are bringing greater transparency to the process. And I think more transparency means it's just going to make our jobs easier, and it's going to help property owners understand, because your property tax bill, that's one of the biggest tax bills that you're going to pay throughout the year, and it comes due all at once. And the more that folks can understand how that's calculated and what the formulas are, the more they can accept it and understand it, and feel better about where their taxpayers are going, or tax dollars are being used.
Well said, Brent. You got the dictation of Dan Rather or Walter Cronkite. Just wanted to let you know that.
Man. Josh, I enjoyed being on today. Thanks for having me, and I'm happy to come back anytime and talk about anything you guys want to. So
hey, you just tease me. You just tease me. We'll get it recorded and we'll talk about anything. We could, discuss anything you want. You're free range.
All right.
Hey, well, thank you, Brent. Again, we've been talking with Brent South today on the BIS podcast. Again, we've been broadcasting live on the Marvin Network. Again, Brent, thank you so much, and thank you for being on with us today.
You bet. Have a great day.
You too, sir. All right, that's going to wrap us up for the podcast, and join us next time for another edition. Until then, so long and goodbye.